Hey, tonight on the Old Time Mini Show, we'll be painting the villains of the 1980 Star Frontiers game, the sinister, treacherous, slimy, bad music-loving Sathar. Oh, man! Hey everybody, if you're tuning in live here this Thursday night, apologies, we're getting started later than normal. Little technical problem over here at Wandering DM's HQ. Back with you, thanks so much for hanging out and confirming that we are live on Twitch and YouTube via Restream. So thanks so much. So we've been working on our Star Frontiers miniatures here all season long, and we've previously accomplished all the player characters. The humans and the blobby Dralocytes and the monkey Azerians and the insectoid Vrusk. Again, I am currently running a Star Frontiers campaign for players that have never heard of the game, discovering, exploring everything about this 1980s role-playing game for the first time, which has been really delightful the last couple of months. And I've finally, here in the last month or so, gotten to the last character type in the core rulebook, which is the villains only, the NPC only Sathar, and somewhat unexpectedly, this making the mold to duplicate these lead miniatures from the 80s has actually been the most troubling one, specifically because I ran out of rubber compound about 3 episodes ago. So we had to restart. We finally did cast the Sathar and their robot allies here last week, and so having accomplished that, I'm going to sit down here and see how much we can get painted here in hopefully about 2 hours. Of course, I'm not going to argue that I'm the most expert painter of miniatures in the world. I do get some compliments about my mold making and my casting abilities, which obviously are a little bit niche nowadays, but I do enjoy this hobby of actually casting in lead metal that we were doing last week, and you can go back to the last episode and check that out. But hopefully we will have the Sathar actually show up in my game sometime sooner or later, and I want to have that kind of visual aspect of the game available for my players. So I'm going to do at least see how much painting we can do here in a couple hours. Let's talk about how I'm supposed to paint the Sathar, because this is what I realized was the other racial types were pretty obvious. Humans and monkeys and blobs and Vrusk were pretty obvious. And I sat down this week to plan this out. Obviously, since last week I finished the miniatures a little bit. I did prime them a couple days ago in the gray primer that I kind of prefer to use. And then it occurred to me, like, how am I supposed to paint? How am I supposed to paint the Sathar? And that actually apparently is a little bit up for debate. Let's check out some resources actually. Let's see here. Okay, so here is the miniature that we're going to be painting tonight in duplicate. We did make 4 last time. Normally I make 3, but by viewer demand, it was going so well, I did make a 4th. And let's look at... Okay, so here is, coming up, here is the text from the core rulebook, what it says about the Sathar villains here. It says, the color of Sathar's skin varies from yellow to brown. The tentacles are the same as the body, but with a slight greenish tint. The underbelly is pale pink. And there's a pattern of dots, speckles, and stripes that decorates the back of the head. These patterns are natural on some Sathar, but are tattoos on others. And if you do have access to the book, you can kind of see the backstory about maybe what... Again, in the core book, the Sathar is secretive. They've never been captured. All we have are vague theories from our planetary scientists about what they're about. So you can check the core rulebook about what the, at the time, theory about the speckled tattoos on the back of the head might be. I won't go into that here. But anyway, so generally, yellow to brown is what it says, with pale pink underbody. Now, obviously... the thing that you would think about was go look at the artwork. Go look at the artwork in the game and see how they canonically portray the Sathar. And there's astonishingly little official artwork depicting the Sathar in color. There's a number of places in the books where they're in black and white. The books are all black and white at the time. And so you have to find cover art with the Sathar in color, and there's just a couple of data points on that. Now, first of all, let me look at the box where I get the miniatures from, for what it's worth. So this was 1983, and I do, of course, have the box with me I could look at live, because sometimes the photos and scans are possibly a little bit different, but that's a pretty good scan right there. And so you can see here that this Sathar right here is, just like the text says, is kind of yellow browny, right? That's pretty much what the text says there. For what it's worth, if you are looking at this, I'll point out that they did mislabel the two Sathar, actually. So the one that I'm looking at here, it's labeled Sathar and Spacesuit, but that actually is the label that should have gone with this one up here, is the one that's actually in the spacesuit. The one that is labeled Sathar with weapon, that's actually this one. Okay, so they got that. They were clearly looking at the text for that yellow-brown Sathar. Okay, and for some reason when I look at it, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that it's yellow. Like, why would that be? And maybe you've got some ideas about how you would paint it yourself. So, William, leaning towards pinkish, whitish, fleshy, wormy colors. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Just spare all the races. Dralocite, Yazirian, Sathar, Brusk, human, male, and woman. I was looking at the counters. For some reason, I was also trying to get some color ideas. I was looking at the cardboard counters that actually come with the Star Frontiers game, and I did notice that, so the Dralocites are actually, now I don't know what I should say. They're non-binary, I guess I'm going to say. So there's only one type of counter. You've got men and women human counters. I realize they do have what appear to be men and women Yazirian counters, and I think there's no distinction for the Vrusk. But you're right. You're right. As far as the miniatures go, they only distinguish the humans, for what it's worth. So, but let me look at two other things, because there were two cover illustrations that they made of the Sathar, and one of them, the first one, was this. Haha. So this is the cover of Star Frontiers. It's coded SF2. It came out right after the core rules, because it's the conclusion of the campaign that starts in the core rules, and that module is called Star Spawn of Volturnus. And you might be able to guess this is a piece by Timothy Truman, and here the Sathar riding what is known as the Cybo Dragon, for what it's worth. Hey kids, bright red, super bright red, and it and so I think that this is the thing that I've probably seen the most, and I think that's why my instinct is for Sathar, I guess, to be red all the way around, basically because of this illustration right here. And thinking about it tonight, I suppose you could write that off as impressionistic, I suppose. It makes for a really nice contrast with the green Cyber Dragons they've got there. Kind of interesting. And if you've read my blog in the past, you might recall that I had a blog about the fact that not only are pictures worth 1,000 words, but they will also overwrite 1,000 words of text. So even though the core book said that they were yellow-brown, this picture got in my head, and I guess I sort of felt that Sathar were red. Which always you need to be real careful about the pictures that you use, because they will. I could have written brown, 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 brown 1,000 times in my life, and I would forget that just because of this one picture. So that's what Timothy Truman did. And we had one other picture, and that was this, arguably. So a couple years later, this is the cover of the adventure Face of the Enemy. which I think is coded. It was coded SFKH3 because it uses both the Alpha Dawn and the Nighthawk's spaceship rules. So SFKH Star Frontiers Nighthawks number 3, Face the Enemy, and this is a piece by Jeff Easley. And here you can see that Jeff Easley was clearly reading the rule book and trying to be faithful to the description of the Sathar as being kind of brownish on the back, kind of pinkish underbelly, is what you see there. Now, interestingly, depending on how someone scanned this illustration or how they tinted it, you might see versions of this same piece of art online that give you a different impression. And so while I was trying to find a good version of this for what it's worth, I would also find this online, right, where the Sathar basically look red. Just a slight bit of tinting difference, and this whole piece came out a whole lot redder. And I think if I search for Star Frontiers Sathar in an image search online, this is probably the first one that shows up. And again, I am led to believe that the Sathar are red. But if I look at my personal copy of the cover of Face of the Enemy, yeah, they look kind of brown. So that's kind of interesting, you know, how close brown is to red. Of course, there's a lot of red tints in there, and you know, so in some sense, looking at the illustrations, I'm kind of 2 for 2. You're probably going to run into some red Sathar, and you're probably going to run into these brownish ones. So it's like, which one am I going to do tonight? Yeah, totally same piece, just different scan. Looks totally different. Isn't that funny? the blue, yellow, gold, black dress all over again. Yeah, I think that what I'm looking at here is like a really is a scan that was available years and years and years ago from, I think, starfrontiers.com, which is a fan site. I think they did a better job, as usual. Like, someone doing it for free commonly does a better job at it than if you were paid for it, weirdly. It tends to be the case about a lot of stuff. So I think I'm going to go in this direction tonight. And kind of like William said in the chat, I do feel like this is more wormy. Like, I'm used to worms being, you know, brown. So I like the pink underbelly. I think is kind of a nice tone. If I go in a reddish direction, I don't think I'm gonna mind that, actually. It will look a little bit, you know. So I do have the brown Usurians on the table. If this is a little bit more yellowy, reddy, I won't mind that very much, actually. Oh, good point, Despair. I don't think it was a reprint. I don't think it was a reprint. I think that's probably just different people scanning the same book. I think. I suppose I should have grabbed, at one point I was thinking about grabbing my physical copy here, but it's way up in a closet, which would take me a couple minutes to get. But I feel like, anyway, so I kind of like Easley's piece here, more in line with what the text is like. So I'm going to try to do something kind of like this, maybe not quite that brown. I don't think that, I'm pretty sure that TSR didn't reuse this piece in multiple books. Again, at the time, they were only putting stuff in color on the cover. I'm really sure that they didn't reuse this. There wasn't any Star Frontier stuff that had inside color art ever. And I'm pretty sure they ended the line shortly after this. This actually was the second to last adventure that they published in a series. So I think it might have come out 1 month before the last adventure ever. And I believe that might have been the last thing they ever published for the series. So there's a couple reasons I'm pretty sure that wasn't reused. Yeah, they didn't, you know, for a Star Frontiers fan, it's a little disappointing how little support they gave it. They were really only 2 years, maybe 3 years that they were actually supporting it. And then I guess they had Zebulon's Guide come out, and that was sort of the nail in the coffin, sort of. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the actual miniatures here. I also have the robots that are kind of, we'll see how much I can do. They're kind of second string tonight. So I think the first thing, I'm not going to try to be too sophisticated. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is get the pinkish underbelly. And then my plan here tonight, get my Vallejo colors here. And then my plan here tonight is to actually try this. No, here it is. This, what is it? Bronze flesh tone, right? I think is kind of yellowy browny, about what I want. So I'm going to try that for starters on the main body, and then we'll be kind of experiment. We'll see how it goes. I might dry brush some more browns on top, or maybe some gold colors, depending on how I like it. We'll see how that bronze flesh tone works. I feel is kind of creepy, wormy in this context. I try to avoid too much like complicated mixing type stuff here, but I will make kind of a pink color for the underbody. And if I was really top notch, I would blend it in sort of where they meet a little bit. The miniature actually does have a raised ridge. I don't know how well you can see that, but it does have a raised ridge right here that clearly indicates where the underbody separates from the overbody. So that gives me a pretty good indicator of where I ought to be putting the pink stuff. I need here. Shake that up. See if I can get a proper pink color here. Okay, I kind of like that. That's pretty good right there. You'll pardon me if I don't entirely mix that bit. Usually if I can get the right color, I feel lucky, and I'll just use that bit right there. Mm-hmm. Really, Vallejo was bought by a financial services company. Yeah, that's not a great sign, is it? That's worrying. You know, I was just reading tonight about Fitbit post-Google acquisition. People are having not great experiences with that, coincidentally. I don't own a Fitbit. I've known people that have been very happy with it years ago. Okay, so if I was... Okay, I'm trying to be clever here. Okay, I'm trying to figure out a way to get a screen up so that the miniature stays in focus all the time, is what I'm trying to do. Probably should have figured this out earlier. Yeah, like so. Is that helping? so. How about that? Okay. Okay. Hopefully that keeps the miniatures somewhat more in focus than I have in the past. I'm not going to be too careful about this. Just recolor later. Should I do the bottom of the tail? I'm gonna color the bottom of the tail that same kind of pinky color, see how I like it as we go forward. Yeah, I think I kind of like that color actually for that. I should mention I have my AC on tonight. Hopefully it's not distracting on the stream. Feel free to tell me if it is. Has to get out of the way. You know, if I was super skilled at painting, I'd blend in the corners here when I put the next color on. Actually, if I get some different highlights in my mix, that's not terrible here. Further away, zoom in. Just a little camera work here. That's what I should be doing. At some point I'll figure out how to run this stream. You know, growing up on the farm, you know, in the summertime here, I'm always thinking about when I grew up doing haying in the summer, and we, you know, raised steers. And, you know, so when it gets really hot, all of a sudden I have this sense memory of the haying job. Or tonight I walked past, you know, a park that they just mowed recently, and the smell hits me. And every year, you know, the job would take, you know, some number of weeks for all of our fields. And every year we'd start off and we'd have a bunch of screw-ups. And the equipment would be broken, and we'd forget how to do certain things. And a couple weeks in, we'd get more and more proficient at it. And my dad would always say, "Yep, you pretty much figure out how to do the job right when it's done. Right around when you're done, that's you get sufficiently skilled. In this case, running the stream. Speaking of worms, there was a point in the past where this was some number of years ago, but it was in this apartment we're in here in Brooklyn. We had the idea of trying to do in urban Brooklyn, trying to do in-house composting, and there was an organization that would set you up with a big bin with some soil and some worms. And so we had this big plastic bin of soil and compost that we were throwing in, and a bunch of worms in our kitchen. And unfortunately, good idea. I'm so glad we tried it. Unfortunately, we were throwing in, I think we were throwing in more compost than the worms could possibly keep up with. And I mean, they're little worms. I mean, it's not like they can keep up with the capacity of a human being, what you're eating. And so unfortunately the worms got sick and the whole thing, turned kind of nasty. But I think someone next door has that same thing outdoors that I just walked by. I think they have a similar bin that might be like composting with worms just next door to us right now, and it actually made me happy if they're finding a way to make that work. Okay, so there's a legitimately pink underbelly. Yeah, William, you're agreeing with you get skilled at it right when it's over. You figure out how to do it. You don't really know how to do it until you're finished. Yeah, and boy, do I feel that we'll come back and redo Fix It. That's so the story of my life. I really wish I had some kind of coach telling me how to manage that issue. Yeah, Despero, I guess they had some announcement like a week or two ago of the new New York official trash bins, I guess, that latch better, I think. There are issues with, frankly, I don't see them a lot, but, if it's really hot or some nights you might see rats or cockroaches, and, if there are people that don't control their litter properly, obviously that's going to attract rats, so they're perpetually trying to find better ways of handling that. Hopefully that'll happen. For what it's worth, I think I heard they're gonna mandate it for large apartment buildings. Actually won't affect us here, but we try to be very careful. I will say that New York does actually have city composting, and I think our worm experiment was before they started it. And then we were very happy when they were doing city composting. Weirdly, myself and Isabelle actually got enlisted as models in an ad campaign. So for a very short time here in New York, Isabelle and myself were actually like on bus stops promoting the composting, and then they suspended it during COVID, and they brought it back about a year ago, I think. I think last October they brought it back, so we are happy that the city now does that. Don't do everything right. We will give them a positive point for that. Okay, so there's some pink Shadar underbellies. Worm tea. So I'm pretty happy with that tone. Yeah, they're constant. What they try to do. So pickup will be, trash pickup here is in the morning, and so they try to keep people from putting big bags of trash out until later at night before it's going to be picked up. Because if someone's, and I sympathize, frankly, if someone's busy or lazy, they might throw the trash in a bag on the street at like 3 in the afternoon, and that gives more of an opportunity for the vermin. We did a whole episode on rats on Wandering DMs like a couple months ago. If you want to learn more about rats in your role-playing game and D&D and things like that. And also, we mentioned Star Frontiers because Volturnus has the infamous army rats, right? The army rats are actually encounters in the core rulebook. So rats, a very important part of your starting fantasy campaigns. You should go see that episode. Practicing my segues here. Okay, so I'm going to let those dry a little bit, and I'm going to think about the robots here in a second. So probably you guys knew this, right? I was researching specifically medieval style naval games the other day. There aren't many. Obviously, there's a whole lot of Age of Sail, canon-based games since forever, including ones by Gygax and Arneson and Carr. I'm not the biggest Warhammer aficionado. I have a couple things. And I actually wasn't aware that in the 90s Warhammer had made a dedicated naval combat game called Man of War. So I was looking at that the other day, and I guess in the box you've got some Imperial boat models, and then of course their main business model, of course, is sell you more miniatures. So then they had fleets for the Chaos Fleet and I guess they didn't make that, but they had a Chaos Dwarven Fleet. They had a Skaven fleet. Skaven, very popular, right? I guess in Warhammer Man of War, the Skavens, I believe, had paddle wheel powered boats. Isn't that funky? That's kind of an odd choice, but that's officially Warhammer Man of War naval rats. It's totally true, Disparo. That is something to keep in mind, that medieval naval stuff almost certainly wasn't in the open ocean. It was certainly a lot of embargo type stuff, landing. Do you land your troops or do you prevent the landing of troops? So yeah, it tends to be around the coast, which actually I think is good for a game because it gives you an opportunity for the play space not just to be a big blank space. So it gives you a completely legitimate rationale for reefs or rocks or islands or a coast or something to give some spice to the play space, I think, which is good. And so for 20th century type stuff, if you're dealing with dreadnoughts and battleships and stuff like that, with ranged fire being the thing that can sink a ship, I think there's less of a problem of just having a big blank battlefield. But if the engagement, like in medieval times, is mostly boarding, frankly, like you're saying, some crossbows mostly boarding, then just having a blank space and just like, let's just run at each other and board, that's super boring, frankly. So fortunately, once again, the real world kind of gives you a solution to that game design issue, frankly, which is nice. So for what it's worth, Warhammer Man of War, the box set, again, this is 30 years old at this point. but does have a whole bunch of terrain and, you know, ocean forts and sea coast and rocks and stuff like that. So that kind of gives you some interesting spice there. Yeah, I agree with what Disparel just wrote there. Like, for example, I was surprised that the dwarves are a major fleet in Man of War. That was one of their first Chaos dwarves, for what it's worth. But I could have imagined them saying, yeah, dwarves don't go to sea. That's something that elves do. I'm not even sure they had an elven fleet, actually, for Man of War. That would be, I mean, I would expect to see that, frankly. But, you know, by putting dwarves on boats, you have an opportunity. Now you've got gunships, which is, I'm sure, an attractive element there. Okay, what was I going to do here? I was going to do robots, right? So, okay, here's what I'm thinking about doing with robots. So I'm thinking back to when I did spaceships for Star Frontiers 10 years ago-ish, something like that. And what I was kind of happy, and it's not what everybody would do, but I was kind of happy with, for the good guys, the UPF forces, I did a blue base coat and then silver on top. And for the Sathar, the bad guys, I did kind of a dark green undercoat. Hopefully trying to, you know, find a kind of a sickly green color, and then put brass or maybe gold highlights on top. Gave it kind of a, you know, kind of a brazen, archaic look. I think I'm going to do that for the robots. I really liked how that came out. So I think I'm going to kind of revisit what I did for the Sathar spaceships and kind of do their robots the same way. For what it's worth, I have one of my, it's going to fill the whole frame, isn't it? Of course. Okay, so I have one of my Sathar cruisers. And over time it's turned dark. Amusingly, like actual copper does, for what it's worth. So at this point, partly because of the dust, partly because it's been sitting out on a shelf for about 10 years, the whole thing turned really dark. But that's kind of looking at the top. But if I turn it over and look at the underside, right, that's a little bit more like when I initially painted it. So you can see it's green. Of course, it's symmetric, so it looks the same in geometrically, it looks the same in either direction. So you can see it's kind of green with the gold dry brush highlights that were probably a little bit more prominent at the beginning, but the kind of the gold dry brushing slightly got darker over time. But that's kind of what I'm going for. So I think I liked how that came out. So I'm going to make my robots the same way. I'm going to start with a green base color is what I'm going to do. I always kind of like that. Disparel, that's the starter factions for Man of War, really? Because I guess I failed to find, if that's the case, I failed to find some of that stuff. Interesting. Oh, what I was reading must have really confused me about that, because all I saw was Empire and then that expansion that you're talking about. Interesting. That makes sense, does it? I must have missed a paragraph somewhere. Good point. Okay, thanks for pointing that out. Right, that makes more sense, frankly. Somehow I think in the box I think in the Man of War box they only have models for Imperial stuff, and I think that got in my brain and the expansion got in my brain. I must have elided the other stuff, which makes more sense. Yeah, so Knickknack95, good to see you tonight. Yeah, I guess that must be oxidizing my spaceship miniature a bit. I think you're right. I think partly it's just dust and grime, because there's a big difference from the top and the bottom. I don't, admittedly, as kind of an amateur painter, I don't like finish, right? I don't do like a top coat finishy type thing on my miniatures, and maybe that might be a mistake. One thing I was thinking about for the Sathar tonight is that they are supposed to be quote unquote slimy. So I'm sure some of you have some tricks for how to make a miniature slimy, shiny slimy. So I have like one thing I just happen to have in the house is some polyurethane that I might try to use for a varnish. Maybe not on the stream tonight because that's probably not a great thing to use indoors, is what I'm told. But feel free to give me some advice about whether you think a couple of coats of a polyurethane varnish on your miniatures might make it shiny like I want, and also do some kind of finish preservation type stuff. Okay, where's my green? So I got goblin green, I got dark green for robots. Guess I'm gonna go with a dark green, I guess. Goblin green might be creepier, but I guess I'm gonna go with this. So this is good. This is good advice. Yeah, varnish is only a big deal if you're both handling them regularly, and it would bother you if the paint chipped. I actually, like for my Book of War miniatures, which actually are mostly traditional Warhammer stuff, I do, since I have so many of them, I don't carefully put them in styrofoam. I just throw them all in a giant box all jumbled up together. And I do kind of resign myself to doing some repairs once in a while. I guess I tend not to do paint repairs. Mostly I'm doing like pin vices and re-gluing stuff mostly. So yeah, I guess I will definitely say I don't mind chipping the paint. I don't think that's ever bothered me. Yeah, gloss medium for shiny. Thanks, Tanner Cast. Good point, Nick Nack. I just recently finished, for what it's worth, I finished my collection of Star Frontiers boxed miniatures. So they only made 6. I just got the 6th one shipped in, I think, last week, I guess. And I'm always, because people talk about this like lead rot degradation, so I'm always curious about whether I'm going to see it. For what it's worth, I've never seen that. And I've been getting these 40-year-old Star Frontiers miniatures. Some people say that they practically rotted away. I've never had a problem to date. So maybe I've just gotten lucky, but a lot of people do say that's an issue. Maybe depending on the lot or depending on how they were packaged. Yeah, okay. The Sparrow, I'm glad that you've similarly had good fortune with that. Yes, screen up here while I'm painting my robots. All right, so for this first coat, I'm just going to slather on some dark green. Probably an unusual choice. The counters in the core game had all the robots like kind of an orange. Like for what it's worth, the counter itself was an orange color. So if I dry brush on top of this with like a gold or something, I think that's probably on theme. The treads here I'm going to come through later and do black. It's funny that some people have had such terrible luck with the lead rot, and we've never seen it. I suspect it might. I think I saw somebody say it might also be the quality of the foam they put in to carry it. If that varied, it could make a difference. should use my holder. Get my fingers out of the way here. Right? Okay, so thank you for supporting my choice of a non-standard color. I think I might have actually momentarily considered purple, actually. Yeah. Okay, my holder doesn't work so well with these treads in the way. Yeah. And then here's my makeshift cork and paperclip miniature holder. Interesting. Yeah, I do suspect some types of foam might have bad chemical reaction with the lead. As long as we're on the topic, just in case there's any new viewers tonight, standard safety reminder. Yeah, the original 1980s Star Frontiers miniatures were made in a lead alloy. I have cast duplicates out of a lead and an alloy that's mostly lead here. Lead is toxic, no doubt about it. So we do try to be careful. I don't get bits in the air. I keep it, even though I cast them in the kitchen, I keep it away from food service items, clean out the area very carefully before and after. I'm going to clean up very carefully after the stream is overnight, wash my hands, everything else. The paints that we use, the rubber compound that we use to make molds, the release agent, they all have vapors that give off, so you want to work in a very well ventilated area. I keep an air quality monitor here on the desk that I'm working on. So I've had good results. It's, you know, there's a lot of nice reasons actually why this material did get used, but you do want to be careful with all this stuff, no doubt about it. Fell off my holder there. Okay. Oops. Did I get that? I didn't get that. All right. Okay, so there are some green base robots. Interesting disparel, yeah. Got some 90s Warhammer stuff in the blisters, and the foam inserts disintegrated. Yeah, I've mostly, you know, that they had expansion Star Frontier stuff in that exact same packaging style. It's stuff I wouldn't use a lot, so I've mostly avoided that. But that has been on my mind actually about the blister pack manufactured stuff. I just saw. I don't. I'm mostly omnivorous, but yes, I have successfully avoided eating my lead miniatures to date. You know, maybe tonight's the first night. You never know. Speaking of the spaceships, right? So I am trying to make these robots look like my my Star Frontiers Sathar spaceships. One thing that I discovered today actually is that, of course, I'm doing this, you know, old school style with, you know, rubber molds and lead casting. But one thing that I did discover today is that there is a gentleman named Tom Stevens who has recreated all the spaceships, all the Star Frontier spaceships, in 3D models. If you do have access to a 3D printer, personally I've never done that myself, but if you are into 3D printing or you have access to that, Tom does have he's on Drive-Thru RPG, and he does have a store called New Frontier Games. And for what it's worth, all the recreations of models that they made for the spaceships, he has on there for pay what you want. Suggest $1 for the 3D for the file for the 3D model. So you could go to Tom's New Frontiers Games site there on Drive-Thru RPG. I haven't used it. I can't confirm that they work well, but looks like a labor of love. And he's got both the UPF stuff and also the Sathar stuff. And then he also made some custom designs for stuff that they never made miniatures for the fighters, or the UPF assault carrier, or I think a mine layer and some other stuff, an ag ship, right? And I think those things are like, again, the digital files are like $1 or $2. Coincidentally, they're on sale as I tape this for the month of July. They're like 40% off at the moment. I mean, you're gonna save 40 cents on the dollar or whatever. But so just, I haven't used them. They look nice. Again, it looks like someone cared about it. So if you are into 3D printing, you might possibly look for that. Maybe the other option here, if you are concerned about the lead, you can go in that direction nowadays, obviously. Nice. Yeah, we have one of our good friends. Actually, Paul and I were over at their place last weekend. Does a lot of 3D printing. Does really nice work. So a lot of one of our professional game designer friends does really nice work like that. I guess if I accidentally get a little green on the Sathar, that's not terrible, because they're supposed to have like slightly tinted tentacles. Yeah. I think that's what he's got. Yeah, Disbarrel. I think that's good. I think that's what Tom has on his site. I was happy to see that. I think I was searching for like Sathar imagers, and then I accidentally wound up on his site, and I was like, oh, it just kind of made me happy that that's a thing. And then, as usual, like one of the top, as usual, I'm searching for something gaming related. What does Sathar look like? And of course, one of the top hits is my own blog, and I'm like, well, that doesn't help me. That guy doesn't know the answer. I can see this despair. It made me very happy that here I am really hunting to track down the original miniatures, right? And okay, eBay's super helpful, and it's going to be available at some point. But you have to hunt. They're not going to be there forever. And it did kind of make me happy that that someone made recreations, and you could just get the 3D file and just save it forever. And that gives you a lot of confidence that it will be available for a long time. That actually made me kind of really, really happy to see that, specifically because of that reason. Okay, so most of the Sathar body, I'm gonna try in this bronze flesh tone here, which looks kind of yellowish brown to me, and also kind of bronzy, like I was making their spaceships. Wasn't really the intention, but that's kind of thematically hits me the right way there. At some point, we still have more testing to do. At some point, hopefully we'll have a Book of War, a next edition Book of War publication. Got a brief opportunity at one point to chat with our friend Matt Finch about that, who's obviously an expert publisher, Kickstart runner, and occasionally we have people suggest you could have miniatures with it. That's always a question. How do you get miniatures for an indie miniature war game? And, you know, admittedly, that wasn't my first thought, but that's what Matt said. He says, well, what you could do is you could have 3D files and have people print, you know, their own custom miniatures for your game. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a really nice option compared to procuring, creating, you know, manufacturing, packaging, actual physical stuff now. For, you know, teeny tiny, small time indie publisher like myself. Alrighty. Focal screen up. See how this works. I think I do kind of like these guys being brighter rather than darker. I think I don't. I think I do want to avoid them being too murky. And kind of have them stand out on the table a little bit when they show up. Where is their hand? I guess that's it right there. I feel like I guess maybe if more of it's the yellow color, I wouldn't mind. So I'm going to go a little bit into the underbelly. Pretty good. Did I fiddle with the camera here again? So I guess this is, at the moment, this is basically coming out exactly like on the back side of the box. Almost exactly the same tone. So that's pretty bright. So at the moment, if I do something else, at the moment I feel like if I was going to do anything, I might dry brush some brown on top. Maybe not quite that bright would be nice. But I don't mind it actually. Well, that's a good point, Isabelle, actually. Yeah, it'll darken when it dries. Good point. Foot. The Sathar had these giant Rob Liefeld feet tentacle things. Again, by the book, they mostly just slither around, right? The two pairs of tentacles are mostly supposed to be manipulating either small things or big things. Just in this particular pose, they're standing on the back tentacles like their legs. I think, for what it's worth, so I'm using, when I play, I have the official DM screen up, and there's quite a bit of information on the player's side of it. Like all the equipment for purchase is on their side of it, and the skill, like experience budget is on that side of it, and the movement modification table is on it. And so there's a table that says, are you in, whatever it is, easy, medium, heavy terrain, swamp, something else. And then what's your mode of movement? Are you walking? Are you flying? Are you hovering? Are you on tracks? Or are you slithering? That actually might be the second one on the table, actually. And so they haven't met the Sathar yet. So they started with somebody pointed that out, and they were laughing and went, "Is slithering an option for us?" And it actually has some bonuses compared to walking. They were like, "We should be slithering everywhere!" Ha 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 ha! Little do they know that comes into play for these guys that generally have the capacity of overtaking the good guys in any kind of bad terrain. Ha 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 ha. Next one, my holder. Remember how to use my miniature holder, actually. Okay. Right? It's funny how Star Frontiers is legitimately pretty lightweight game. And I think the more I play it, the more I realize what really good decisions they made. Because there's some article that maybe you, Disparrow, pointed out to me a little while back, where one of the designers was saying the company made them make a lot of cuts, and he was kind of unhappy about it. But you know what? I think that the cuts were smart, for what it's worth. But it is interesting to think about like what counted as very lightweight. Fast forward. There's a lot of much more lightweight games in the market now. But one thing I thought of is that, so supposedly in the original design for Star Frontiers, they were using a lot of different dice types. And obviously Star Frontiers, the way it is it only uses percentile, only uses D10s, that's it. And so I can see, coming from D&D, you have the library of platonic dice that you can use. I can see, wanting to be like D&D and using a bunch of dice. And at some point, the publisher, TSR said, no, cut that out. Just use one die type. And the designer being a little bit irritable about that. But, so obviously you have the financial incentive that if we're going to put dice in the box, which they did, you only need 2 D10s. That's it. But the other thing, and this happened in a game I was in within the last week, and if I think about it, I see this all the time, is that for casual players, when they sit down to play D&D, right, they routinely have trouble distinguishing the different dice. This has come up probably in every game I've played with a casual player, and I want casual players at the table. I want new people playing my games. But inevitably, they get confused about what die they're supposed to roll, and specifically distinguishing between a D20 and a D12. I think every game that I've played for the last year, someone has gone to make an attack roll in D&D and has picked up a D12 and rolled it by accident. Just because they can't visually tell the difference between the dice. So I think whether that was intentional or not, it's actually a blessing that in Star Frontiers there's only one type of die at the table. Just pick a die up and roll it. It will be correct. And it's one less thing that a new player is going to stumble over. And now I think that's kind of smart. Even if the D10 itself isn't a platonic die type, and I sort of hate it. Nonetheless, you know what? I will embrace the one type of die. It's fine. It's totally fine. I've come to how I learned to love the D10. Right. Oh, weird. I didn't know that. The playtest versions of 5th edition was going to use different dice for the proficiency bonus. I didn't know that. Huh. Well, of course, you know I didn't play Alternative, but the first thing that pops into my mind is it's like the DCC system, right? That's how fighter bonus dice work. That's the first thing that pops into my head. Yeah, it was kind of interesting to meditate on what I was, because I was playing it. I played it, for what it's worth. I played a D&D game as a player last week, and you know, I got to be a little bit more reflective about what I was seeing, the stumbling blocks, particularly for casual players. One being would make this accident about picking up the wrong die type and having to correct for that. The other thing being that literally any amount of math is hard. Any amount of math is a potential stumbling block. So, likewise, a thing that happens in Star Frontiers is all the math is on the inside of the DM screen, referee screen, right? As the referee in Star Frontiers, I do literally all of the math, and just for skill tests and for resolution tests, and just inform the player, here's the number on the percentiles you need to roll below, right? So I just utter a target number, and the player just rolls and compares. The player never does any adding for resolution checks. And so that again is another as expert gamers, we don't think about that so much, but that's another potential, not even potential, it's a stumbling block that always happens in a game anytime I observe it. Someone's going to have a little bit of trouble, with the 17 that they rolled and the 6 ability bonus or proficiency modifier. They got to find the right die, they got to roll it, they got to read it, they got to find the right number on their sheet to add. They got to do the addition and then report it to the referee. You don't think about it, but that's a surprising number of operations. Whereas in Star Frontiers, it's just roll something in front of you and compare. And I do think it goes just a little bit smoother as a result with brand new players. This leg here. Now I'm thinking about 5th edition with Different dice for proficiency modifiers. That's... Our friend Max ran a DCC game with us for a number of years, and I think that was one of those stumbling blocks. Actually, is the fighter players. I was playing a sorcerer myself. The fighter players would tend to forget about that a little bit. Jeez, I kind of like that. I wonder if should I have colored the gun silver first before I did this? Maybe I should have done that. Oh well, I'm committed. That's a color right out of the... Fortunately, this right here is a color right out of the bottle, so if I need to repaint the arms, it's not too hard. Yeah, Despair, and I was thinking about that this week with both the late first edition, second edition era, with the THACO numbers, and I think, I'm seeing people I am seeing brand new players have trouble finding any number. Like even if there's just like one single attack bonus number, like I've also seen them, have to ask, where is this? Even just one number is not entirely trivial. For some reason, this arm on the gun is just like making me really happy. I don't know why, but the shape of the arm of this arm is just like convenient to paint for some reason. It's just like working really well with me. kind of like that. That seems to be... That color seems to be working for me. Seems pretty naturalish. Seems to make sense. Cool. You're right, this barrel. You're right. It probably wouldn't even be on my mind if I weren't playing Star Frontiers, and I've got a record of their chances to hit on my side for what it's worth, and I just say 35%. And there's at that moment there's no look up, and the action happens pretty quickly. So I don't normally play that way, but I am seeing some advantages to having the referee entirely in control of the numbers, particularly for brand new players. And of course, that was the situation when D&D was first invented, so I can see more of a reasonable context if Gary and Dave were playing that way at the outset. There are times when I fantasize about having games where I start off, make characters, and specifically ask each player, do you want low math or high math? Do you want less math that you do or more math that you do? And kind of tweak what's on the character sheet depending on what they say. And I control more of the math if that's what they want. And also curious about, like, how many people would vote which way on that? Like if I said, you're not going to know your attack bonus, but I'm going to do all the math for you, how many people would go for that? The main problem with that idea is that the additional overhead about who picked what. I guess that would just be another mark on my index card on my side. It's like, Nope. For some reason, the particular model's limbs, like, for some reason, I feel like I've painted 6 limbs on this guy, and there's more to go. Pretty good. Why do you go out of focus when I turn you like that? It doesn't make any sense. Cool. Cool. That's a good start. I poured out a little more paint than I needed for that, but okay. Now I'm thinking about dry brushing the robots, but they still look kind of shiny. No, I guess that's seems pretty dry. All right. Yeah, I think when I was rotating it, I was like, I think the way my hand is working is I brought it closer, which then made me start thinking about all the trouble I have with my bowling release. Yeah, I keep trying to. You're totally right. The advice I got for this was keep the camera actually kind of further away and then use the zoom a lot. Works well. Okay, so I'm going to try. Damn it. Yeah, the base on the robot has almost no place for me to grip it. Oh! Dropped it in my lap there for a second. With me. Be a little careful with that guy. All right, so I'm gonna grab the polished gold color in the set I got here, and plan to do some dry brushing on this. Kind of fairly liberal dry brushing, actually. If I get a lot of coverage here, I don't mind it. Is the brush I want to use? I guess so. Good point. Yep, totally agree with that. It's one of the few, like Paul gave me this trick of put a little bit of flash metal in a bottle to shake it up, and that's specifically one of the ones I prioritize getting that in there. This is not sitting on my holder at all. I think I have to give up on that or something. Sorry, but my finger's in the way there. So that's pretty close to what I had my spaceships looking like initially. Right, and before 10 years went by and everything got really dark. So that's pretty much what I was looking for with that. Brings out quite pretty good amount of detail. I could still do more highlights there. That's pretty much what I'm looking for a starter. I kind of like that. Of course, the spaceships in Star Frontiers canonically, right, your basic defense is reflective armor. You have to try to deflect some of the laser blast, the lasers being your primary weapon type. So I always thought it was kind of a nice visual image of these half reflective, intentionally shiny spaceships careening through space. Yeah, pretty good, like that. Whoops. That works pretty well. Again, kind of reminds me of the yellowy orange counters that they had for the robots. That kind of works. Yeah, that's totally my plan, is to make the treads black. Yeah, that's absolutely the thing. Your thinking is exactly mine, Despero. Is if I had to, I could play with this perfectly fine. But yeah, I do want to make the treads black, and I do want to go and make some little lights, probably some like red and green lights, maybe in the little dotty things I've got in the mini model. Yep. But a good start, right? I wouldn't be too embarrassed putting that on the table. That is exactly the plan. I'm not using very much of this gold paint, right? You get a pretty good effect. I am basically dry brushing it. And with just a tiny little bit of paint here, I get really good coverage. Pretty comprehensive coverage, which I don't mind. Not slathering it on, but funny, you get totally different reflections based on the angle you're looking at. It's kind of like, how much did I actually get there? It's a little confusing. It's funny. One angle it looks totally green, and another angle it looks totally gold. Okay, it's a pretty efficient way of getting it done. Pretty happy with that. All right, now for my Sathar, I really got to paint that gun. Trying to see how complete I can make these things. Really got to paint that gun. So I have not that. Now I have this set has a has gunmetal. And it also has silver. I've been doing most of the guns for the player characters in silver, because it kind of pops a little bit more. Here I don't know. Like they're already kind of bright at the moment. These guys, so I don't know. And I was totally planning on using silver like I've been doing. I don't know if gunmetal might be better contrast here actually, which kind of surprises me. I don't know if you guys have an opinion about that. Oh, really? The guns? Really? What were you thinking? Oh, the robots you're talking about. I got it. Could have been either, right? I think partly, again, I just kind of wanted to conjure up what I did for my spaceships. Certainly had all kinds of different options. This model that I bought secondhand that I duplicated here, the original owner had made it red, kind of a dark red. Works perfectly fine, kind of like it. Kind of says combat robot. There's certainly an argument that if you're on the battlefield, in the open, you'd actually prefer not to have a bunch of reflective stuff, because that will be super visible. That'll flash and give away your position much further away than if you didn't have that. So arguably you wouldn't really want it looking like that, but the spaceships are supposed to be reflective. So kind of revisiting that a little bit is what I'm doing there. Interesting. So either gold or black. You know, I never think about that. I want it to be visible, right? I kind of specifically I intentionally kind of want the dangerous stuff to pop on the table, so the players are kind of aware of it, which is why I've been veering towards the silver. Yeah, pure black isn't. I would never think of that actually. I don't think I'm going to go gold because I feel like that's going to be too close to the yellowy color that they are. I did the Dralosite guns in gold for what it's worth, so it's a good option. I think I'm gonna make them silver again, and then I am gonna dry brush the Sathar with a little bit of brown to darken them a bit. I think is what I'm going to do. So I'll see how that works. If the backs are just a little bit darker, the gun kind of pops silver. Just kind of visualizing that. I'll try that. Obviously, I can just repaint them if I don't like it. I'm going to try the gun silver here. Sorry. The black is interesting. Let me just. I'm not gonna follow it slavishly. Let me just flip over. Well, there they are in that picture. They kind of have black guns. Did this guy have a gun? Well, and look, this guy here has a gold gun. You probably weren't thinking that, but that's exactly what's happened. In the only two official illustrations in the universe of Sathar holding guns, one's gold and one's kind of black. Yeah, I don't think it's in my painting capacity to make them camo. What did they do? Okay, and then the one you can't see that the one on this box here is actually silver. So I think so. I guess you're defensively in the right zone with any silver, black, or gold. Interesting. This one seems to have like orange highlights. Okay, these guns look good because the background is yellow. Because you have this yellow background, the black kind of pops against it. It works there. I think I am going to... Even the tips there are still silver. So I'm going to make these silver, see how it works on the table. Yeah, any of those would be 100% legitimate. Again, like this barrel said previously, shake that metal paint up really well. Yeah, a lot of the Star Wars blasters are black. That's a good point. I'm probably going to paint over some of the arms here, but that's okay. I got that actually without too much spillover. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that actually. Maybe just because it's shiny right at the moment, but that really draws your eye to the threat. That works for me. I like that. Notice that a couple of them are a little bit shorter, right? When we were casting, didn't quite get the tip on it, and I said I was going to live with it. Call it a laser carbine. I don't mind that little bit of variety there. So far, I'm making less of a mess of this than I expected. Nice. Dig that. Stuff here I gotta cover up. Nice. Interesting. Thanks for looking that up in Flash Gordon. Interesting. Yeah, you'd think. Yeah, if you'd quizzed me, I totally would have guessed that all the guns there are like chrome color. Interesting. That's a good movie. It's a good, it's a good Flash Gordon movie. There's a lot of really committed actors in that. It looks like I'm gonna hang out, for what it's worth tonight. I'm gonna hang out a little bit longer than I normally do. Normally do this for about 2 hours. We did get started late tonight. We had like a 20-minute delay tonight. A couple other things I want to do with these guys. Before I put it away. Jeez, I like that a lot, actually. That tip's a little bit bent. I tried to straighten that. I should do that again at some point. Oh, you know what? I'm realizing. I just thought of something. Let me finish this guy's gun. Gordon's alive. Great. You know, speaking of pulp heroes, yeah, you're totally right, Disparrow. Right at this moment, you're right. I won't ever look at him this closely again. Yeah, as you do this, it's kind of similar to like you figure out how to do it right at the end of the job. You know, any kind of art, when you're in the thick of the details, you notice stuff that you never would ever before or after, and that probably nobody else ever would in the history of the world. I think I probably said I used to have friends in a particular band that kept redoing an album for about 2 years for that exact issue. They'd record it, they'd edit it, and go, okay, now that we finished it, we know how to do it better, and they'd just restart. And they'd redo the album, they'd redo the album, they'd redo the album, and I'm sure it was getting better every time, but probably not in a way that anybody else in the world could detect. So I do feel that. Ooh, I like those guns, actually. I'm happy with that choice. Yep, totally. You get a sawed-off laser rifle. You get a sawed-off laser rifle, and you get a sawed-off laser rifle. That's it, just two. That's all the metal we had available. Yeah, that works, right? Yeah. Thank you. Now I do want to make the backside a little bit darker. That's a little bit brighter than I wanted. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to do a very light. I'm going to try a very light dry brushing of brown. So the thing that occurred to me right in the middle there was, with all the other miniatures, I've got them color coded. Again, for practical use, I've got a red Vrusk and a blue Vrusk and a green Vrusk. Specifically, like each of those races, they had some kind of equipment. They had some kind of garb that I could RGB color them. And these guys don't. You know, and I tried, when I was live streaming the Vrusk painting, I tried to tint their skin slightly differently, and that was a huge disaster. So after the stream, I went and actually constructed little packs for them, specifically so that I could paint them different colors. Now these guys, I totally didn't think about this issue for the Sathar. They don't have any packs or any clothes. I think it'd be goofy to paint the guns different colors. I really like this silver color. mean, I suppose one option, so they have these markings on their back of their heads, which are kind of tattoos, is I could possibly, it would have to be really obvious, but I could possibly give them different marks on the back of their heads. Like I could actually, I don't know, I could actually number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe? Like with that many stripes or something? I don't know if I don't know if that's obvious enough on the table. Oh, okay. So I'm saying this seconds after you wrote that to Sparrow, yeah. Right, the robot. I didn't think of the robots. Right. Totally didn't think about that. Hmm. Hmm. Now these guys potentially. Okay, now for what it's worth, okay, I'm going to pull a spaceship on here. So for what it's worth with the spaceship miniatures, I did just Roman numeral the bases. And this, you can see this just happens to be Sathar Cruiser number 1. According to the little Roman numeral base. That might make somewhat more sense in a war game, I guess. And there's not as obvious a place to number them either. Where were you thinking about putting the numbers in the robots? I totally didn't think about that issue. I mean, that would make sense. Actually, that would make sense, like their race cars, right? Like, just literally have... I mean, it should... For these, literally just have numbers. like their sports jerseys. Yeah, that's... I was hoping you'd say that. I was actually really hoping you'd say the easiest place to number them. Because I was thinking maybe, like, try to make the lights different colors, but that's going to be too subtle. I mean, the back has a little bit of a flat spot. That might be too small. Interesting problem. I totally didn't think of. Can't put it on the bottom. That wouldn't help you. Yeah, I agree with that. It'd be easy. You'd immediately see it. Just a little bit goofy. Like you're telling the you're telling the airborne bombardment exactly what target to go after. Kind of makes sense. Yeah, that back bit would get lost. That's what I'm going to do. So at least, so for the Sathar, I'm using the markings. I might just Roman numeral them on the back of their head, actually. That's an interesting thought with the eyes. My original plan was to have the eyes all gold colored specifically. Kind of a, I don't know. I kind of wanted like a. What disease am I thinking of that makes your eyes go yellow? Cholera? Is that what I'm thinking of? Yellow fever? I kind of did want their eyes all to be yellow with black pupils, which is kind of what Easley has it in his painting. Jaundice, there you go. Thank you very much. Yeah, that is what I was thinking of. So I think probably the markings there. So I'll leave a space here. So I'm going to do a little bit of dry brushing where the segments go. I'll leave the head kind of bright so I can put in black markings and make that kind of obvious. Hepatitis. David, thanks for the vote. Okay, now I'm curious. What if you search for that? Okay, jaundice is pretty high. Yep, hepatitis, gallstones, certain medicines, liver infection, malaria, sickle cell anemia, hemolytic anemia. Jeez, lots of stuff. Okay, and on more and more and more and more, Gilbert syndrome, and drinking too much and cirrhosis. Yeah, I think I was thinking jaundice, I think. Yeah, okay, for what it's worth, hepatitis is the top thing at WebMD. Yeah, okay. And that's why you don't Google sicknesses. what you're sick with. That's going to bother me now. There you go. Right, jaundice is an early stage of liver failure. We're all right. We're all right. Okay, so I've got this beastie brown color that I'm going to do try to do a very, very light little dry brushing on the back of the Sathar with this, darken it up a little bit. Get a different cloth. Get what I'm using on camera. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to try to go super, super, super light and just see where I go from there. Jeez, I'm getting a lot of coverage with that. Subtle, that's about what I'm looking for. I guess I don't want to darken it any more than that. Oh, okay, that actually does bring out some nice detail around the face, actually. Not bad. That's not bad. I think that's what I want. I think if I go any darker, I'm going to regret it. I think I had an art teacher probably like freshman year of college, and I think I was doing pencil work in class, and he's like, "Why aren't you doing this?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to add anything and screw it up." And he's like, "You cannot think like that." But I still do. I'm seeing some places I missed the pink cut over. Yeah, okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that kind of mustardy color. We'll go with that. Oh, the temperature finally came down below 70. Oh, you got me jealous there. So here in New York, the heat, I mean, it's been worse in other places. This past week it was like heat index of like around 105 for, I think, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And Isabelle was out doing a guided tour in the city on Tuesday, which was brutal. I feel like at some point I might do a wash, particularly on the underbelly, just maybe a little brighter than a little more birthday cake than I really wanted. Oh wow! It's like there's all kinds of places I'm seeing I didn't cover with the flesh tone. Oh, 70 to 90% humidity. Gross. And also we had thunderstorms like every night here. Like I was like, am I now living in a tropical biome? Like I started expecting, like I got to go out, I got to come back before the nightly thunderstorms. Ooh, that's looking pretty good actually. Actually, I like that. Okay, okay. I give this thumbs up. This is good. It's bright enough to be visible on the table. It's not like goofy bright, kind of wormy. It's a little bit brighter than normal worms. This is actually working for me. Disparrow, that's exactly what happened here. Yep. It would thunderstorm and then get worse is what happened. Like the morning would be like, it's bad, but it's kind of dry, and then it would thunderstorm and it would be more humid afterwards. It was awful in the evenings here. I think Wednesday night we went out for a walk at like 9 at night, and we actually put a small wager up for what the heat index was, and I came back. It was 97. It was 97 at 9 o'clock at night. Wait, that works super well with the segments on the wormy thing there. That is a good effect. Yeah, probably a dark wash on the underside will darken it up a little bit and highlight the segments better. It's probably a good option. I like that quite a bit. Thank you for Disparrow. I'm still kind of an amateur painter, but this is a good trick. Probably about the first one that anybody learns. As I do this, I'm finding all these spots I failed to cover, like right on the underside of his neck there. Get those fingers to pop out. Pretty good. Thought was hiding part of it. A purplish wash for the bottom. That's, you know what, that seems solid actually. I tend to go for black, but actually that, I like the sound of that. Jeez, there's more there. As I do this, I'm thinking about my friend's band that kept redoing stuff, and of course now I've slightly gone into the pink too much. I have to fix that. I have to fix my fix. But other than that, nice. Okay. So that's what we got at the moment. I'm going to do their eyes, right? I'm going to do their eyes gold like I was planning on. Oh man, I've got paint all over the camera remote. Damn it. Sorry. Painty fingers, painty shirts, painty pants. I'm not sure how much this gold eyeball is going to show, but that was my plan. Oh, I kind of like that. So obviously that won't be as shiny in time, but it kind of gives you kind of a glistening liquid eye effect. I don't mind that. It's following you around the room. Sure, it looks good from the front. Mm-hmm. I dig that. That works for me. You're entitled to a few damn it's. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this probably was a somewhat cleaner, verbally cleaner stream. Like, for example, compared to Book of War had a very high F-bomb count. That is a good point. I really like that. That's eye-catching. Yeah, specifically my partner Isabelle, who's a sufficiently good player that we wind up cursing each other endlessly when we play. And then usually apologizing right out. There's a lot of apologies of like, I'm sorry, I'm just so competitive. I get wrapped up in it. immediately afterwards. Whether we stream it or not, to be clear. Oops, that one I got a little too aggressive about it. Pretty good. Everyone we've had on has been wonderful. Don't forget about our friend Christian, who only showed up once and just spanked me at my own game. That was quite embarrassing. That's dope. Cool. Ooh. Ooh, wow. Really get the... They're... Wow, you really get the effect that they're looking at you. That'll dim with time, of course, but... Oh wow, they're looking right at me, and they have big guns. I like this purple wash idea. Do I have... Admittedly, to make life simple for myself, I mostly try to use stuff right out of the bottle that I don't have to mix. I don't have a purple color here. I do have ultramarine. Where did I screw up with the yellow? Was it here? There it is. Let me see if I can fix that. Whoops. See if is my pink sufficiently wet still? Not so much. Oh, good. Okay. All right. Good job. Good job. Good job. I think the ultramarine, I think I actually might, it's close-ish. Kind of darkish. Yeah, you know, I feel like that will pop against the pinkish red. I think that's a pretty good option. I think I might try that actually. It's ultramarine, man. It's ultra. I think I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. Okay, now I don't want it too dark. I want just the tiniest little bit of blue. I should mix it up, of course. too much in there. Whoops. Got a whole bunch of brown in that mix there. Maybe I should just not use that brush. Try that again. There you are. Totally agree. Yeah, a brighter blue would have been trouble. Okay, that's too subtle. All right, so I got this is what I got here. So I'm gonna try to use it pretty subtle. I think I've screwed up with overly intense washes in the past. Try that. If I made that too subtle. I'm gonna try this and let it dry a little bit and see what the effect is. As it kind of collects in the ridges, we'll see what it does. Because I think that does already pop out the segments a little better. I might need to redo that. The pink is just a little brighter than I like the rest of it. The pink's just a little bit much. Now the funny thing is, I think there was a Dragon magazine article that was like new alien race. A couple of years after this was published, and it was, I believe, the cystic, if I just going from memory, the cystic. And basically the shtick was, they look like Sathar, except they're totally pink. And they're good. And this here is making me realize, well, the Sathar are already pretty pink. That's a fairly subtle difference. I would not recognize that in my personal campaign, for what it's worth. That's kind of lazy content creation in my book. Pink's a little bright for me. Yeah, when you go like, oh, they're just another like we didn't need that. I think decades ago, what, Night Below, right? Big boxed campaign, looked great in the store. I have it, I got it, like, oh great, I love the Underdark type stuff. And the back of the box said, like, new, character race, new possibly player character race. I'm like, oh, Now, you remember, this is 10, 15 years after Gary Gygax's, underworld adventure with deep elves and dark dwarves, dark elves, of course, the drow, etc., etc. And so you open up the box the night below, and what do you have? Rock elves. They're elves, except they live underground, just like the drow. I'm like, really? Really? Like another underground elf race? That's your creation? That lost points in my book. Right? Yeah, we had valley elves, we had shadow elves, gray elves, high elves, right? But now we're doing multiple of the same theme. You already had underground elves. It's more underground elves. That was sort of my. This is now we've overplayed this at this point. I could deal with the valley elves. I could deal with the wood elves versus high elves. But man, once you're on underground elves Mark II, like, okay. This is true. You had two types of evil dwarves at this point. You're right. I feel, for some reason, I feel like I could forget that because, like, hypothetically, you do have mythological basis for those, right? The Dever. I mean, I guess it's all just the same root word for dwarves in the first place, actually. The Devergo. I mean, the Darrow was actually some, like, crazy pulp writer guy. Like, there was some dude that was actually claiming that the Darrow, like in the 20s, there was some guy claiming Darrow were a real thing controlling the world. So that's sort of got some heat to it. I could sort of embrace that. Just like more elves and they also live underground. Yep, you're not wrong. You're right. What's the name of the guy that was like had the Darrow conspiracy theory? Of course, if I hunt for Darrow, of course, I'm gonna only find D&D stuff. Richard Shaver claimed to have discovered the Darrow in 1932, writing in a 1945 issue of Amazing Stories. He produced a 10,000-word document detailing an advanced alien race that built a vast subterranean civilization. Yes, right, okay. And once again, I'm looking over here and you're writing over there. Thanks to you were ahead of me to Sparrow. Yeah, right? The first time I found that, it was like, what? That's crazy. And therefore it makes good gaming, because it was good. It was interesting enough someone seemed to have actually convinced himself that he believed it. I'm going to try a slightly darker wash on the Sathar underbody. I wonder if I should I wash the whole thing together to kind of pull it together? What would happen if I did that? Okay, just slightly darker wash here I'm going to go for. Still very subtle. Okay, so at least you can At least I can see the blue paint here. I'm gonna gently try this. Like around, you know what I should do is just around the transition point is what I should do. Pretty subtle. Let's try that. Okay, I think that's a thing. That does something. Darrow. Again, I've said it a million times, but I like my D&D to be referencing something else in the world, not just be D&D about D&D, which is very, very old school way of thinking about it. Not bad, not bad. Yeah. Pretty good, I like that. Yeah. Spoil, you can't go wrong with black or very dark green. Yep, you're right. And for what this paint set makes it even easier, right? It's like a starter fantasy hobbyist paint set. So I've got a bottle that specifically says Goblin Green, and a bottle that specifically says Dead White, Bone White rather. And then, you know, if you're a 40K player, you got the Ultramarine right sitting right there. So doing a pretty good job of pointing in the right direction. Black wash is 50% of the process. Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good. You know, and I'll live with these, right? And I'll see. Yeah. I'll see another. I'll let it dry like another day and see if I want to do something else with them. I got a number. Are their eyes dry at this point? Right. So so a couple of things I did want to do with the black paint is I wanted to give them two little pupils, and I guess I should I should tattoo an identifier on the back of their skull actually. Without making it too completely obvious. Yeah, I usually, you know, that's a good point about the base. I tend to think about that later. It's not the first thing I like. I'll figure that out later. I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, if the rocks are gray, that's actually not terrible. Sometimes I go in, you know, the places where I've you know, got some pink paint there. Like I go in and I recover it more gray. Yeah, I tend not to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on the bases, admittedly. I think my other miniatures actually still are gray bases. What would you do? Certainly, I feel like some kind of barren, desolate. I certainly wouldn't go in and make it like fertile green. Ah, interesting. Basic goblin green. I mean, the bases here seem to be are mostly rocks for what it's worth. If I could get that in focus there. So you actually do get these kind of lumpy rocks. So if I could, I said if I had all the time in the world, I could make the base green and go back in and paint the rocks gray afterwards would be an option. Actually, pretty rocky in the sculpt. Yeah, plain brown is not bad. Not a bad option. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so for now, let me do a little bit of black work. See if I can do kind of fine detail stuff here. I mean, arguably for this kind of thing, I shouldn't even use a brush. I should use like a pen. Which is like how I did the numbering on the spaceship, actually. I have a white paint pen. I have to make sure I don't have a big blob of paint on the end of my tiny paintbrush. So I'm actually the screen is easier to see than the actual miniature at this point. Legitimate. Yeah, I have some flocking material for other miniatures of other themes, I would say. Which I'm always worried about, because if I spill it out of my equipment, it's a huge pain in the butt. A little bit blobbier than I wanted. Okay. That's what they have in the Easley painting for what it's worth. I'm gonna go double check. Which is, it's not something I would have thought of myself. It's a detail. Yeah, if you look real closely in the Easley painting, I'm pretty sure they do have two pupils there. Anyway, it's a little point of interest that I don't mind. Sorry, it's my screen there. I don't think that's in any text, right? I think Easley came up with that. Which I like. Yeah, I think that's the only place I've ever seen it. use... Oh, I have a little thing there, don't I? Whoops. What point of interest? Okay. All right. I'm happy with that. Pretty good. All right. So now, I guess what I want to do is do the markings on the back. Damn it. Wonder, should I feel like I'm gonna make a Roman numeral that goes right in line with the head, I think, just so I can make it bigger. I mean, alternatively I could make it go vertically across it, which I guess would have more room for more digits, I suppose. Is that better? I think it's better in line with it, I think. Let's try that. Oh, I really wish I had a pen right now. I didn't intend to get a serif on it, but I kind of sort of did on the one. All right, try that. I might have to repaint this and redo this. I don't know if this is working. You know, I'm gonna put a couple decorative dots around the base just so it doesn't completely scream numbering scheme, which I suppose makes it harder to read, but whatever. Number 1. Number 2. It's not perfect, but it's about as stable as my hand can get. I don't mind this. I feel like one of these happy little accidents. The Sathar in my game are now like actually branded with what number you are in the squad, which is kind of chilling. I can only count to 4. Well, fortunately, our squads only go up to 4. Not super happy with the 2. Okay, so this might be extra goofy, but I actually am going to put the IV in. Right? You could do 1, 2, 3, 4 little marks, but I actually am going to put the IV in. This guy. Okay. Let me try the V first. Yeah. Number 4. A little bit longer here. Okay, I think that's serviceable. I think I can see that. I don't mind, actually I don't mind making the tattoo on the back of their head actually serviceable. Actually part of the game. Got it. No, I haven't heard that. That's really funny. Yeah, I think that's used. I think I can see from a distance as a referee. I think I can see the difference on those guys. I think that works. Well, I think that's a good solution. I don't know if I did the best job, but I think it's a good solution to identifying your Sathar separately. It's actually in canon. They actually have these identifying brandings on that part of their head, frankly. So use that. I dig that. All right, now I think I guess I will. I have this black paint right here. Right, why don't I put I'm going to put the treads in on the robots. I said we were going to do that, and I guess I'll also number those guys on their noggin too. Not a lot of space there. All right, I'm gonna go back and fight with my holder again. this sit there for a little bit, please. Tanner, thanks for checking in. Have a good night. Okay, that's good advice. Now, actually, I think assuming it hasn't dried up, I do have a white paint pen, which is what I use on the spaceships. So maybe I'll grab that. And then the question is, do I use Roman numerals or do I use Arabic numerals? I feel like, I don't know. On the one hand, I feel like normal robots, I feel like I want to see Arabic numerals on, but they are Sathar. They're going to have a separate alphabet. So I feel like maybe seeing Arabic numerals on their robots. Of course, on the other hand, I wouldn't necessarily use these robots with Sathar all the time, right? I would grab them for some other purpose too. So maybe that argues for the Arabic numerals to be more, I don't know, technical or whatever. More high tech. So the treads are black. They're not super easy to see there, but yeah, I'm definitely right. I can't, maybe a QR code. Maybe I can stamp a QR code on the top of them. They are square, right? That'd be funny. You know what? That's a horrible joke, but now I kind of want to see it. Get our app. Check out our current mission and functions on our app for your Chronocom. My players get their equipment in Star Frontiers, right? Your starting equipment. You got a Chronocom. It's like the most basic thing you got. And of course, my players have to ask, what's a Chronocom? And I have to say, well, it's like a smartwatch. I mean, I have to say, well, basically it's a smartphone, but on a watch, right? Which is obviously not a phrase that would have any meaning at all at the time that Star Frontiers was invented. Basically, it's like your phone. Amuses me greatly. There actually is a device in the world that basically matches this science fiction. And of course, when in the Volturnus campaign, like any good horror story, I say, well, your Chronocoms aren't doing you any good whatsoever because there's no service here and this world doesn't have GPS yet. Which is, I believe, also a thing that didn't exist when Star Frontiers was invented, I think. It's a tricorder. Oh, that's good. That's good. Let me, I'm going to get up just for a minute. It's in the other room here and see if I can dig out my white paint pen. It's totally what I use in the spaceships for this exact same purpose. I'll be right back. All right, and my memory didn't quite serve me right there. So I have a couple of paint pens, but one of them's gold and one of them's blue. So obviously the one I actually used in my spaceships literally 10 years ago, that is long gone. Why would I have these colors? Why would I have gold and blue paint pens? And are they any good? Yeah, no, it actually is good. I have no idea what I thought I was ever going to... Oh, that's very good. What did I ever use that for? Now, obviously, gold on gold isn't going to work, so these aren't good options. All right. I'm going to try, so option A, go buy a white paint pen and wait a week for that. So in lieu of that, I'm going to try to hand paint Arabic numerals on their tops. I feel like Arabic numerals are just kind of funnier, I guess, for some reason. Particularly, I'm thinking like if I use them not just for Sathar robots. Probably more opportunities to use them for human robots. I was also thinking about like a red color. I was thinking about, but you know, that might not read, might clash. Okay, can I get this brush clean enough for white? Is one question. All right, I got bone white, I got dead white. I guess dead white's a whiter white, so I'm going to go with that. Thank you, Lorsudo. Thank you. I like it quite a bit. The Sathar, I like the Sathar overbody, the underbody, a little pinker than I expected. I'm going to let it dry, check back in a day, see how happy I am with it. Pretty happy with it. Okay, do I have the dexterity to make, that's the other thing, right? In addition, I can make Roman numerals because they're, I mean, Roman numerals are Roman numerals because you're doing them with a chisel and they're very crude. Do I have the dexterity to make Arabic numbers that are teeny tiny? Let's see. Okay, the one's easy. Yeah, a tiny little 3 is okay. I'm gonna man up for it. I'm gonna try. Let's see. Might look. I'll draw it and then I will defend it with some particular font where it looks like that. I'll go find a font where that's what it looks like. Okay, the 1. Okay, okay, 1. Legit. So far. Laura Sudo, thanks for asking. I don't think so. We, I think it was 3 weeks ago. I think it was 3 weeks ago we had our last game. We were planning on it last Friday, and partly because of storms here in New York, actually, players couldn't get to the the place actually. So we had to abort it last Friday. Would have been an update. Would have been the plan. So I think currently the plan might be next week would be on schedule. Okay, here comes the 2. Okay, that was probably a better 2 than I would have bet on. I'm gonna call that a win. It's better than I would have guessed. Okay, here comes the 3. Yeah, thanks. We're taking teeny tiny little victories, literally. Can I do a 3? My brain's working pretty well at the moment. He said, okay, 3. What does so it's like, what does a 3 look like? Rehearse the 3. That's really better than I thought I was going to do manually. Look at me, I'm thrilled at having made a 3. This is such a funny hobby. I'm gonna sleep really well tonight because I made this 3. That was a good day. That was a good day for me. Fortunately, I only have 3 robots, so that's an issue for another day. Ha! Look at that. My 2 base is a little blobby, but I'm not going to redo it. It's readable. That's the important thing. So, Laura Sudo, thanks for asking. I'm liking the system a lot. I did chat a little bit about just the basic number skill resolution part. I like that there's only 1 die on the table. New players don't get confused by that. I like that all the math is on the referee side, so I'm just reporting a target number all the time, and saves players issues of doing math. I think it's actually. I mean, I think my players have seen criticisms online of it's too lightweight, and they've come back to the table after a couple weeks and go, I'm not seeing it. Like I don't need it to be any more heavyweight than it is. I think it's fine, is what my players have said. So you know, however many sessions, 5-ish sessions in we are, they're scoping out the skill system. I think they might, I don't know, at some point they might start to see, you know, weird corner cases in the skill system, as limited as it is. One of my players said, should we all just take 1 level in medical skill? Would that would benefit us a lot, is what they said. And then I thought, and then it occurred to me, oh, aren't there training rules here that I'm forgetting about? Should I limit that in some way? But so far pretty good, actually pretty good. You know, I did a little research on, like, I was looking at the range modifiers, and I did a little bit of research on how likely are you actually to hit in a gunfight. And it's actually surprisingly hard. Like if you look at actual law enforcement statistics of like, how often you hit in an extreme situation, it's really hard. It's actually really hard to hit somebody with a gun at any kind of distance whatsoever. And I was like, you know what? The range modifiers, they might have just made him up. They might have pulled him out of thin air. They're actually defensible for real. So we're actually having a good time with it. I do now have probably about 2 pages of house rules that I've developed. I think probably the last thing is I felt like I had to rewrite the grenade rules. I felt so I am making a bunch of modifications, but the core of it, it's kind of a good skeleton, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, open top 4. I think that's how I normally draw it. So I guess. Okay. Yeah. So I normally, my custom is to make an open top 4. So probably if you hadn't asked, I would have done that. Yeah. Oh wow, it's. Oh, time flies when you're having fun. So it's currently 12. It's 12:30 in the morning here, Brooklyn time, which is later than I expected. The players are not demanding psionics. That's a good question. Which is in the Zebulon's Guide, right? Which, again, like Matrix sequels, I'm going to act like it doesn't exist. No one's asked for psionics yet. Yeah, not in the core rules. There were no mental psionic stuff. It was added. Now we accept that except there's a lot of hypnotism stuff for what it's worth. I don't know if you're counting that, right? There's the psychosocial skill that actually has a surprisingly potent hypnotism sub skill, and somebody on screen right now also has hypnotism skill that will not reveal to people that may possibly play Star Frontiers in the future. But as far as like psychic mental stuff, there's nothing of that in the core rules, which I appreciate, frankly. They did add it in Zebulon's Guide. Again, I would point to one of that as one of the mistakes. One of the things I don't think is great. I think we were like on the Sunday show a little while ago. We had an episode on skill systems, and I was holding up Star Frontiers. I like it. It's got, I don't know, 12 skills. It's like 6 weapons and 6 other things, about 12 skills. Okay, at least for new players, it's digestible. And then Zebulon's Guide comes out, and it's like, you like skills, do you? How about 80? How about 80 skills to peruse and choose from? I kind of think that's a mistake, among other things. It's not a school night for me, among other things. I am on July here. The school systems are out for what it's worth. Yep, in the Alpha Dawn, in the original rules, I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything that does any kind of mental stuff. There's stunners, right? And you know what? I frankly don't mind. I actually kind of like that they have this hypnotism skill that at least, in the pulp sci-fi literature, maybe that could be a thing. That actually could really be a thing. Maybe among my players, some of my players really believe in hypnotism. So I actually kind of am entertained by it being a little bit more concrete. in some ways than something that's just like total pure fantasy, like mentalism. And they have stunners and stuff like that. So there is the hypnotism skill. You can hypnotize someone and give them a suggestion to do later on that they don't know about. But you can't teleport. You can't telekinesis stuff. Yeah. Desparrow, you are correct. Yes, I'm devoting all my time in the summer to. Well, I guess I can't even say that because I actually had to do work. Even though I'm not teaching classes, there's actually still, if you guys are teachers, you know this. There's always work. Like today, I had to fill in some paperwork for my fall semester on July 18th. Right, I actually did have to sit down and do that today, or now yesterday. Already started preparing my fall courses. We have a new software learning management system that we have to set up for the first time, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need to know about that. But it is true. I'm not teaching in the summer at the moment. So speaking of the Sunday show, Paul and I we were off this Sunday. We're planning to be back this Sunday, obviously, for some more D&D chat. That's Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll be there. I guess I'll wrap up here in a couple minutes. Now, we have at this point made at least one version of everything for our Star Frontiers miniatures that's in the original core rulebook back in 1982. So over this season of Dan's Old Time Mini Show, we did make humans, right? Both male and female. And we've made our mold. We've cast it. We had an episode where we painted it there. We made the blobby Dralocytes. That was actually the very first thing we did. We made the monkey Azerians. We made the insectoid Vrusk. That was very interesting. That was a lot of arms. That was certainly the most challenging thing I've ever cast, is the Vrusk. And then here we've made finally the bad guy Sathar that's in the core rule book. And also some robots to go along with them, because robots, that's a big thing in Star Frontiers. So we're going to call that Season 1 of Dan's Old Time Mini Show. And at this point, we're going to put this show on hiatus. I'm taking a break from teaching for the rest of the summer. You call it. We're also going to take a break from this show for the rest of the summer, actually. So you guys that have been tuning in regularly all the time for the Dan's Old Time Mini Show, thank you so much. You've made this much more enjoyable, of course. Particularly the painting. I try to avoid sitting down to paint myself, frankly. But with you guys chatting, this is actually a really entertaining hobby. And you've made my casts better with your advice about the casting and mold making. And you've certainly made my painting a lot better, too. So thank you so much for that. And if you're not a patron of the Wandering DMs, we would love for you to join us. You can go to patreon.com/wanderingdms. Every tier gets you access to our Discord server, where the conversation's continuing round the clock all the time about D&D and fantasy games and horror and science fiction and miniatures and mold making and model making and wargaming and all kinds of stuff like that. I should put some updates for our Star Frontiers game on our Discord server, actually. I'm a little bit behind on updates on that because I've been able to chat with you guys here live on the Thursday night stream. But we're going to put this on hiatus. We're going to take the rest of the summer off. Look back in this space in the fall. I'm planning on being back with at least something. It might be some other miniature-related gaming this fall, possibly with some other people. So check back on our Discord server for updates about what we're doing. And check back on this Thursday night slot in the fall. We'll be doing maybe this, maybe something else, probably something miniature-related. So thank you guys so much for this season of Dan's Old Time Mini Show. It's been a total blast. And we will take a little bit of break here and look forward to seeing you guys this Sunday, of course, Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time with Paul. And then for the next season of something this fall. Yeah, we'll have so if you're expecting all through the summer, I do apologize for that, but I think this is a good place to call it Season 1. Maybe Curse of the Azure Bonds. Maybe. I was totally thinking about that. I was expecting an ask for that, frankly. So that was totally on my mind this week about what to happen next. So we'll check in on the Discord server again. Thanks so much for a great season here of Dan's Old Time Mini Show. I'll give you some updates about our Star Frontiers campaign as it goes on. So enjoy the rest of your summer. Stay cool. And we'll see you on Sunday. And then we'll see you for other shows in the near future. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.